I think it's important to consider the timing of it and how quickly you go in or out. For example, I had a great example and I just lost it. So there you go.
The trend came in your brain and it left just as fast.
It did. Hey-o! And if I claim to be a wise man, well, that surely means that I don't know. As we kick off episode number 140 of the Promo UPFront podcast, I am one of your hosts, Bill Petrie. With me, as always, back from Mexico. Let's call him the ombudsman of the Online 18, the one and only Kirby Hasseman. Kirby! How the hell are you?
I'm doing well. Like you said, I got a couple days out of the country there in Mexico, which was just sunshine, man. And I love the warmer weather. I love a little sunshine break, especially this time of year. And we've come back, and actually the weather's not been too bad here in Ohio. So I am doing well, my brother. How are you?
Doing great. Had a nice weekend. Was able to see Josh, my business partner, and hang out with him for a little bit. And then all day Sunday, it was gorgeous out here. So I spent time outside reading just quietly. I did some cooking. So I had a great weekend. I have to thank my wife for making it very easy for me to have that kind of day.
Nice.
And what's interesting about it, Kirby, it got me to thinking.
Yeah.
In an increasingly complex world, Kirby, working with companies that make it easy for you to do business with them has more value than ever. I think we would totally agree on that.
Yep.
And when it comes to making the lives of distributors easier, you know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about our pals over at Evans Manufacturing. Now that they're part of the HPG family of companies, Evans remains solely focused on making every single transaction as frictionless as possible. Now, that alone is enough to partner with Evans, but when you factor in their beautifully crafted and decorated merchandise, it's really a no-brainer to work with Evans. In fact, over a one-week period in February, Kirby, get this, Evans received over 100 A-plus ratings in Sage over 1 week. That does not happen by accident, does it, Kirby?
It does not. I mean, I think that and I didn't know that. So that was the first time I was hearing that stat. And that's kind of amazing, really. I mean, the idea of anybody who's ever tried to even just get Google reviews or things like that, even if you're requesting them, it's hard to get people who are passionate enough to do it. And the idea that you got 100 people in 1 week, that's incredible.
Yeah, Kirby, I couldn't have said it better myself. Alan Vaught and the leadership team over at Evans has intentionally crafted a culture of caring that really flows throughout the organization. You and I have experienced that in person, from manufacturing to account representation to customer care to ongoing communication to delivery. Evans truly makes it easy for distributors to work with them. So, Mr. and Mrs. Distributor, if you want to take some stress off of your plate, head over to evans-mfg.com right now. And you'll be saying things like this distributor did in a recent Sage review. They said, Evans is one of our go-to suppliers. Our quality and service is always amazing and consistent. Again, when you want to work with a supplier that's always amazing and consistent, take some stress away by visiting Evans Manufacturing at evans-mfg.com. Now, Kirby, I want to thank you for having the courage to podcast with me today. Back from vacation, re-entry is never easy. But unfortunately, you do have the upfront section of the podcast today. I know you're going to bravely soldier through.
I will. And thankfully, PPAI made it easy on me. So, I think the obvious topic was the Online 18. Sorry about the train. There's no avoiding it. So the Online 18,
as Aerosmith once said, the train kept a rolling all night long.
Yeah. So released its list of the Online 18 influencers, which happens each year around this time. Now, I will say they did a list in advance of it, right? That was the influencers of companies. And I want to kind of discuss that at some point.
Sure.
But quick perspectives on it. My overall takes. Were they changed. So let me step back. Sorry. last year, Dale Denham did the Online 18. That's who created it. That's who's been doing it. You know this, but just to say it for the listener. And he actually asked us separately off the air, and he said, hey, discuss it, and then let me know if you guys think I should keep doing it. And I think we both agreed last year that probably not. Right. And so we said that, and we weren't taking shots. He asked, right.
No, we gave an honest we gave an honest opinion that Dale, as now the president and CEO of PPAI, it just is not a great look for him to arbitrarily decide who is an influencer and who is not. That it was time to either stop the list or turn it over to the editorial team, and he did the latter.
Yeah, he did that. And so I actually kind of, that part I really dug. I like the you and I talk about this. I really like this list. I like all the lists. They're fun fodder for us to talk about. Plus, I just enjoy learning. Right. And I think back to the very first year that Dale did this list, and I wasn't on the very first year, but what it did was it showed me people who I probably should be following. And that's the way I took it. And this year, with a fresh perspective, different faces that are on it, I thought that was cool. Now, if I'm being honest, Bill, when I saw fresh faces that I didn't know, and I knew quite a few.
Yeah.
I was like, well, if it's an influencer list, how is it that I don't know them? I'm just like, now, before you skewer me, I kind of shifted my perspective and said, not you, but just the collective you. I was like, you know what? No, this is another opportunity to go back and say, look, these are people who are doing good things. In an industry our size, the idea that we would know everybody is a little bit myopic. And so I like the idea that there were some fresh faces on it. And I thought that the fresh perspective of the list by the staff was really cool. So that it was sort of my take. I wanted to see what your take was.
So yeah, I didn't know they were doing an individual list. I mean, just the company's list came out. And I thought, okay, that's it. Okay, great. And there were some really interesting ones on there. I thought, it's a list. It's an opinion-based list. There's no metric. It's gut feel. And so I always take that into consideration when I start looking at the list. So I don't have anything to criticize or anything like that. It is what it is. I do like the fact that the editorial team at PPAI has taken this list over. I also like the fact that there were some people I wasn't familiar with. I was surprised. I mean, sometimes I look at the list and I think, I didn't know they were that deep entrenched in social. There were, frankly, people I didn't even know existed on this list. And maybe that's a testament to me, and maybe I'm too focused on my own stuff. So maybe that's a shot at myself. I will say this, and I guess I have to live up to what they wrote, that I'm always willing to give a hot take. So here's a hot take. I am not saying this because of any other reason other than I think you being at 17 is borderline ridiculous. When it comes, this is a measurement, especially on the individual side, this is a measurement of content marketing. And I think it's cool. I think it's cool because it validates the value of content marketing. So I don't have an issue with that. Good. But you were the pioneer in this industry of content marketing. I don't think there's any question about that. I think that's a fact. Now, that's not to say that people may not end up doing it better than you from time to time.
Sure, yeah.
But 17 felt a little low. And by a little, I mean like 12, 15 places low. I thought that was a little low. I will say I loved seeing people like Mitch Silver on there.
Oh, yeah.
I think what he does on LinkedIn is almost the next iteration of what I see as content marketing. He does these videos or asks theoretical questions or has great pictures, but he really probes people in terms of thought-provoking questions, thought-provoking comments, things like that. So I thought that was great. I thought, Joshua Pospisil, if Nick Latour owns Mondays, then Joshua Pospisil owns Wednesdays. I'm excited to see what he will do. I'm hoping that there's something else he's got in the works, other than the Pink Wednesdays, which I think are great. But I'd like to see some other things. So again, great list. I'm honored to be on it. I know you're honored to be on it.
Of course.
It's not easy to put together an arbitrary list, so I really do want to say that. But a lot of if you're new to the promo industry, the branded merch industry, the promotional products industry, the swag industry, whatever the hell we're calling it today.
Yeah.
If you're new to the industry where we use decorated nuggets of goodness to influence people, these are companies and individuals you should either get to know or at least know of, because there's a lot of knowledge there. And I think that was my biggest takeaway from this. A ton of knowledge there.
Yeah.
I do like the fact that they broke it up a little bit, but I will say this. I think if you have, like, here's what I don't understand.
Right.
Now, and I got a beef. I have
okay. All right.
You're going to put Logo JoJo, the company, at number 11 on the company's list. Deserved, by the way. Ellie Bath, who runs Logo JoJo, is very tied into her own brand and does a great job with it. How is she not on the individual list?
Right.
I don't understand that, because to me, those two are woven together. Now, there may have been some backroom discussion saying, okay, that is basically Ellie Bath, is Logo JoJo, so we're not going to do that. Again, I always want more transparency with these things. It's a thing I always complain about. I want to know what the criteria was, the metrics and all that. But that being said, and I'm not complaining. It sounds like I'm complaining. It's an honor to be on the list. It's an honor to be number 11. You should be higher. A couple other people should be higher, in my opinion.
And thank you for the kind words. I appreciate you saying that. Again, I think you as well are one of the leaders in the industry, and so it's very cool, and I appreciate the kind words. I agree with them that you are willing to take on the hot takes. It was funny in reading that was one of my things that I was like, yeah, I think that's true. And I honestly, in my mind, there are times where you wade into arguments on Promotional Products Professionals page that I'm just like, screw those people. Yeah. I have no interest in trying to argue with that. It breaks rule number 2 for me. Rule number 2 is never argue with an idiot. They'll drag you down to their level and then beat you with experience. Right. And I occasionally get sucked in, and I just purposefully don't. Now, my take on the other list, so about organizations. So now that I understand that the organizations list was in addition to the individuals list, I think it's really, really cool.
I do too.
But I don't think either you or I, and again, just understood. I think both of us thought that the organizations list was now this list.
The list.
And we, in the interest of transparency, I noticed neither of us brought it up last week, because I was like, well, that's just not even the same thing. And so I've had this a couple different times where it's like, well, if you just, when you announce it, say, hey, we're going to be doing the online 18 individual list later, but we've actually added something to it, and it's this, then I think I would have looked at that list with a totally different set of expectations and a level of interest. And because I saw the first list and I was like, well, what the hell is this? I don't even understand it. And kudos to HPG and Brand, like all the folks that were on it. But I'm like, well, that's not the same thing. And had one sentence in the explanation that just said, we're doing this in addition to the thing we've done in the past, and our the other list is coming out next week, then I'd have been like, oh, interesting. And I love the addition. Now that I understand that, I like it. A week ago, I didn't get it at all.
Yeah, and I do like treading into arguments, because I serve both suppliers and distributors. I have the opportunity, I have the lovely opportunity every week to piss both sides of the industry off. And I like that. As far as the company list, we did, Kirby and I did speak about, we're not going to talk about it because we didn't understand it. It didn't make sense to us. I will say, I reread, if you go back to the company's list, if you reread it, buried in there, it wasn't exactly highlighted. I will say that it did say next week, this is part 1. Okay. It wasn't labeled as part 1 when it came out. But in the sentence, it came.
If I go back, if I have to go back and read something that both of us read and neither of us got originally, I get it. So on me, but then it wasn't very well illustrated, because if I got to comb through shit, your audience doesn't do that. They just don't.
No, it wasn't. So, it was not broadcast in such a way. Hey, here's part 1 and part 2's coming next week. It was in there, but it was kind of in the 5th paragraph, middle sentence. So you really had to read everything. And in a society where we're all moving so fast, it probably makes sense to broadcast that a little more. But again, bottom line, kudos to the editorial team that does this. It's not easy. You open yourself up for people like us type of yuck monkeys to kind of start criticizing and all that. But great list. And honestly, truly, anybody, all the companies on the list, all the individuals on the list,
awesome.
This is the group of people that keep creating and pushing the industry forward. So kudos to everybody. You know what, Kirby? We're pretty amped up. I don't know if I need to amp up the podcast. You know what? I do. I got to amp it up. I got to amp up the podcast. Hey, distributors, is your marketing working? If you can't answer that question with an immediate yes, then you need to reach out to our good pals over at Promo Pulse. That's right. They can help you consistently amplify your sales through stunningly beautiful outbound marketing that's so easy. You customize it, you set it, and then you forget it in five minutes. Learn more at promopulse.io/amp. Okay, Kirby, I guess it's up to me to talk about something now.
Right. Unless you want me to.
Nope, I want to. Influencer marketing predictions for 2023.
Okay.
Are you up for this?
Sure. Whatever. I'm
I figured you would be. All right. Influencer marketing predictions for 2023. And this comes from the Marketing Technology Insights. I don't know what that is. Sounds like that. Number 1. I thought these were actually pretty interesting. So 4 of them, Kirby. Let's talk about, I'll go through the description. Let's yammer back and forth. Fill some time. That's why I always like to argue. Let's fill some time. All right. Number 1, the rise of Gen Alpha. That's right, Kirby. People are still grappling with Gen Z, but Gen Alpha is reaching their teens, and nearly half of under 13s have a social media profile. Children under 12 influence parenting decisions to the tune of $670 billion a year. And the majority, 52%, choose to spend pocket money on online games like Roblox and things like that. And they tend to spend money on customizing their virtual avatars. Okay. Do you think it's time to tap into this trend or not?
So I think that this is one of those moments where I become the old guy in the room. This makes me wildly uncomfortable. There's never a point in our lives growing up, Bill, where our parents handed us a $1,000 piece of machinery that has casino-like algorithms in it and said, hey, good luck. And that's what we're doing. So the idea that and by the way, of course, they have spending influence. Kids have always had spending influence. It's the reason, McDonald's was so popular because that's where we wanted to go with Happy Meals and whatever. But the idea that I would, as an organization, start targeting those, I'm not comfortable with that. Now, I'm not in retail, and so I'm not in that kind of business. But no, I don't like that. That makes me wildly uncomfortable.
I have to agree with you. I think, there's money to be, here's the challenge in a capitalist society. If there's money to be made, someone will figure out how to make the money. And as you have deeper access and easier access through those $1,000 machines, you have easier access to that audience. It's going to just explode. Now, I could argue, though, you and I, growing up, used to wake up early on a Saturday morning and watch cartoons, and we'd have commercials for Hot Wheels. Sure. We'd have commercials for Fruit Loops and all those other things. So I don't think the targeting of kids under 12 has changed. I think the technology has changed, and it makes it so you're inundated with it.
Yeah. And I think that no argument, right? Of course, when I'm watching Bugs Bunny and they did the cartoons, that's fine. Number one, the access to it was just less, right? There was only so many channels. There was, I think studies, this is one of those times we're living through a super interesting time. And I think social media and the sort of the splintering of cable news, we're going to look back at the impact that that's having on our mental health. And people in future generations are going to go, why didn't they see that? But we're living through it right now. And so it just, this is one of those where I don't have studies in front of me. I can't give you the things. It's not good. And so,
no,
that's where I'm at.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And again, and it starts with, though, if my parents didn't want me to watch TV, they'd walk in, turn it off, and I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't go in my room and have a portable device to get additional input. So I think it's a challenge, but I do think from a marketing perspective, and that's if we talk about just that from that perspective, it is going to accelerate. It is going to increase. It is a thing. All right. Number 2, the fall of Meta and Twitter. How this is going to disrupt brand ad investment. Meta's gamble on the metaverse has not paid off.
So
Their
far,
stock has fluctuated quite a lot negatively.
Mm-hmm.
Twitter, I think that's self-explanatory. I'll almost be surprised if Twitter makes it through the end of the year. Hot prediction there.
Yeah.
And
I think
it's open.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
Meta at least feels like it has a little bit more of a firm foundation. Yeah, I think Twitter is a shit show. And it was a shit show before, and now it's like not even a well-organized shit show. And so I think at least I think Meta has more staying power. So if it can overcome that, maybe there's something there, but that's an interesting prediction.
Yeah. So it's really open both of these platforms, which, Facebook feels old to a lot of kids. Twitter is imploding, as we talked about. It's really opened the door for TikTok. It's no longer up and coming. If you think it is, you're wrong. It's projected to add get the stat, Kirby. It's projected to add nearly 10 million social buyers this year. That's almost twice the combined increase for Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible.
So I think it's time to pay some pretty close attention to TikTok. And that means people like me who my thing about TikTok, I just don't want another social channel I have to deal with. I mean, it has nothing to do with anything else. My wife loves TikTok. She'll scroll through the videos and I get the appeal of it. I really do. I see some funny stuff on there, entertaining stuff. But it's just another thing. It's kind of what we talked about earlier, another electronic device taking me away from reality. And I don't love that. But I think it's incumbent upon us as marketers to really pay attention of how to leverage TikTok.
Well, can I just say that so Jade, my youngest daughter, has joined our company, and she's helped us, and she convinced me really in the last month and a half that we've increased. We've had no presence, but now Hasseman Marketing has a presence on TikTok. And what's interesting to me is we are utilizing the platform to go there, Instagram, and so a couple of the places we weren't playing.
Merge it together.
And in February, our traffic to our site was up over 1,000 users.
That's great.
So, and specifically from social, so you can track it between Google Direct and social. And it's again, I'm not sure I'm tracking it to specific purchases yet, but is it having an impact? It is. So it's interesting.
My only thing is I wonder again, and we'll talk about this at another time, but fads come faster and leave faster than ever before. And so I don't know what the staying power of TikTok is, especially with all the government, concerns about the data mining from China and all that. So, but it is something we all need to pay close attention to as marketers. Number 3, Kirby, friends as influencers. Brands are exploring hyper-personalized recommendations. So of the 12 sectors examined in a recent survey of 15,000 respondents in 15 different global markets, social media was dead last in the trust rating at 47%. So trust is hard to come by on social, and it's been decreasing. I think we know that, right?
Yeah, this is the oldest. Like, this is not much of a prediction from my perspective.
No, but here's one that's interesting though. So the move toward micro and nano influencers. We talked about this on a podcast maybe 4 or 5 months ago briefly. So influencers with under 100,000 followers are in the highest demand. So not the Kim Kardashians of the world, it's the Kirby Hassemans of the world that are in demand. And 55% of marketers believe them to have better connection than their higher profile peers. Kirby, what do you think about that?
No, I think to me that's the one that makes the most sense so far that I've heard. I think that part of the idea of social media done right is that it does enhance actual relationships. As again, I think we give credit to Danny Rosen when we say the social media will never replace the handshake, but it'll turn a handshake into a hug. I think that when done right, that's what it does. And I think that those smaller, 100,000 followers is a lot, right? Like, those folks still have some touch with the folks that are actually following them. And so, that to me, that's not a surprise at all.
No, I think what we're seeing is, and everything is cyclical. Everything goes back and forth on a pendulum. And I think what we're seeing is really the increase in peer-to-peer influencing. If you tell me to try a restaurant, Kirby, and I've dined with you, I know what you like to eat. So if you like it, I'm probably going to like it. I'm going to go.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
has far more sway to me than a bunch of people saying, brand new restaurant, man, it's awesome. People I don't know, because I immediately wonder how many of those are manufactured, how many of those are made up. Again, I don't have much trust in that stuff on social media.
Yeah,
But if I see someone I know or someone I respect, an individual,
totally.
that's different. So last one. Trend today and gone tomorrow. We talked about this a little bit. Trend spans are becoming shorter and shorter.
Mm.
Now, you know me, Kirby. I have never, ever, ever been a fan of following trends. I think it's always a mistake to follow a trend. I think it's important to pay attention to trends, but I don't like following trends because attention spans are shorter
Right.
and shorter. So I want to, since trends are shorter and shorter and shorter, what do you think about following trends as from an influencer marketing perspective?
Yeah, I kind of go both on both sides of this. So I'll argue with you just for the sake of the discussion.
Please do.
So it's give credit where credit is due. I think I heard this from Gary Vaynerchuk, where he talked about jumping on these not necessarily trends, but different platforms. He said so many times, even if the platform goes away, that each platform brings a different skill set. And then if you gather those skill sets, then once TikTok takes off and actually does show some lasting power, the things that you
Yep.
learned on Instagram will pull
Right.
through. And I think that is sort of my overall take. I think when Clubhouse went really fast, I think both of us were like, well, I'm kind of at least intrigued.
Yeah.
And I think both of us sort of predicted,
We called it out. It's
yeah,
going to
that it
go
was
away quick.
probably going to go away pretty quick. But I did understand the concept, and I thought, you know, being an early player in that still does have value. I think what
Sure.
it is just knowing that you're, and you and I've talked about this, and so maybe this is sort of my take on it, is that you don't go specifically all in on one new platform. You put all the tools in the toolbox. And I think
Yeah.
that's where it's like when people say, we've talked about this, oh, email's dead. I think they're completely full of shit. And so it's like, that's just one tool in the toolbox. If you built your
Yep.
whole business on email, then yeah, maybe you're screwed. You should be building across platforms. And I think those
Yeah.
skills will translate.
And I think there's two parts of that conversation. One is the new social media platforms that pop up, which was kind of what you were addressing. And I
Yeah,
agree with you. I know how to use TikTok. I just
sure.
don't, because it's a
Right.
bandwidth issue.
Yeah,
It's
of
a
course.
time issue, and I don't want to do it. But I think there's also the trend issue, the actual just weird trends that cycle through social
Right, right.
media. And
Okay,
I
yeah, yeah.
think, man, so I think there's two sides of it. And I love what you said about the platform part of it. I absolutely agree with you there. I think if you ignore platforms, I mean, I've said this to my kids for years. If a brand new email client shows up that is people are starting to take notice of, I immediately grab Bill Petrie at whatever. I did it with Twitter until it got taken away and hacked. But I've always done that. So I've always been an early adopter. I think being an early adopter for technology trends is smart. I think when it comes to actual trends that flow through the ether, that flow through life, I think it's important to consider the timing of it and how quickly you go in or out. For example, I had a great example and I just lost it. So there you go.
The trend left came in your brain and it left just as
It
fast.
did. It did. But I mean, there's a life cycle. There's a life cycle to it. And what was that show on Netflix last year? It was a Korean show with
Oh
the
yeah.
person winning the
Didn't
money.
Squid Game? Is that what it called?
Squid Game. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
Never watched it.
I got into Squid Game early on. I made a Brandivate ad for Squid Game. And if I hadn't done it within the first 2 to 3 weeks that was released on Netflix, people would never have known or understood it. So
Right.
you have to get in at the right time and realize that it is a life cycle and ride it and get out. It's almost like short selling a stock.
Right.
Get into the trend and get out. But if you can't get in, don't get in too late. But it's better to ignore it. So really interesting stuff. Really interesting stuff, Kirby.
It really is, dude. That really, I like it. I love it when you bring up lists. It's so funny to me because I like the people lists, and you
Yeah,
like the trend or the topic
I
lists,
do.
and I like it all. So I think it's fun.
We like all the lists here at
Yeah, that's
Promo
right.
UPFront.
Well, cool, man. We are about 30 minutes in. You want to do
Are
another
we?
topic? Or are we?
I got a quick one.
Okay, let's do it.
Actually, do you have a quick one?
No, you go ahead.
All
Fine.
right. So I actually saw this. Are you familiar with the candy bar Toblerone, Kirby?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Toblerone.
Yes,
Have you heard about this? All right.
I think
So
so.
they must now alter their packaging because it does not meet Swissness laws. It does not meet Swissness laws. So the brand is going to be stripped of its iconic Matterhorn mountain logo because of Swiss regulations. Now, the brand's owner, which is U.S. based, it's Mondelez, is shifting parts of its production from Bern, Switzerland to Slovakia. Now, the Swiss law states that national symbols can only be used on chocolate products when, one, the milk comes exclusively from Switzerland,
Okay.
and number two, at least 80% of the other ingredients must be Swiss sourced.
Okay.
I guess that's not the case anymore. So they're going to change the carton from of Switzerland to founded in Switzerland.
Okay.
And they're going to remove the Swissness notice on the package, and they're going to pay homage to Switzerland by using a, quote, modernized and streamlined mountain logo consistent with geometric triangular aesthetics.
Okay.
Kirby, I find this fascinating that the Swiss government is that stringent in terms of what they consider their metrics for quality. So this might shock you. I absolutely applaud this. They have specific, strict metrics. The Toblerone is no longer going to be following them. They're not inside that line. They can no longer be considered almost a Swiss product at this point. And I actually think that's great in a society where we're too eager to bend rules to make people happy. I love this type of militant stance. What say you, Kirby?
Yeah, as you were, I'd read the headline, so I appreciate you giving me a little bit more perspective. And as you were explaining it, I was like, yeah, makes sense to me. Those are the rules. I think there are rules around, when something is a made in the USA product, or there's a this, or there's a that. I think that there needs to be some standard that whatever it is. So yeah, I think it's funny. But I think, Toblerone had to have known that if they were moving the company from manufacturing in Switzerland out, that Switzerland might take some issue with that. So yeah, I now, will it affect whether or not I buy a Toblerone? Absolutely not. Doesn't affect me at all. But I kind of like it.
Is it Toblerone or Toblerone? I've always said Toblerone.
I'm hardly an expert on that, and hardly, but I'm going Toblerone.
All right, listener, let's hear from you. 615-301. No, I don't know. Is it Toblerone or Toblerone? All I know is I cannot wait to have myself some Slovakian chocolate. That's me personally. And you know what else I can't wait for, Kirby?
What's that, Bill?
Company to come along to make my life easier. But thankfully, I don't have to wait. In years past, I'd have to wait and wonder and figure it out and think about it. Not anymore. Not in 2023, Kirby, because that company already exists. It's Evans Manufacturing. That's right. They're fully dedicated and only dedicated to making your distributor life easier. And that's every department. It's from account representation to customer care to manufacturing to packaging to decoration. They have it all, and it's all focused on making your life easier. You talk about kind of relieving some of that stress, because we do live in a stressful world and we work in a very stressful industry. So you want to partner with a company that's going to make that life just a bit easier, and maybe even more than a bit. Head over to Evans Manufacturing at evans-mfg.com. Kirby, I want to thank you for having the courage to fight through a train, fight through vacation reentry, and fight through my mispronunciation of chocolate bars from Switzerland.
Thanks, man.